Welcome here to Wednesday Night Favorites on Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. Yes, we're at Favorites Wednesday night. It's time to do a top 25. So I've chosen a kind of a something I did a couple weeks ago. I did a set list that somebody had asked me to do. Zachary, I believe it was, had asked me to do a set list for songs I would have liked to have seen in concert. If I was putting together a list of songs I would like to have seen, what would they have been? So I did 25. Of course, some bands didn't get in there. A couple of them I left out on purpose. A couple of them I was going to put in, and then I decided against it. But one of them we're going to be doing tonight. One of those bands that I changed my mind about. We're going to do their set list tonight. I put it together this afternoon. And it's basically all their first 6 albums. Yeah, I think it was their first 6 albums, except for the debut album, which I decided not to include any songs off of, mostly because the tracks that I do like on that are also found on their second album. So, we are going to talk about the band Triumph. Yes, that's my set list for tonight is on Triumph. This is going out to our king, who made a mention that I didn't include any Triumph on the play set list that I did last time. Mostly because I decided at the last moment I had picked a song to put on it, but I decided that Triumph is one of those bands I've seen live, seen them twice live. Once at the Mistake by the Lake, which was also known as the Exhibition Stadium, no longer in existence, and once at Maple Leaf Gardens, also no longer in existence. So I decided that since I'd seen them twice, I was going to make a play set list for them. And this one goes out to you, King. This is in honor of you. So, Triumph. This is a band that I've long loved. I loved them more when I was younger and kind of got away from them a bit over the last, I would say a couple of decades. This particular album was my favorite album from about 1980 through to about, I would say about 2017 or so. So, well, maybe not 1980. Maybe it was like 85. Okay, so 85, 95, 2005, 2015. So a good 30 to 35 years, this was my favorite album. And then recently, in recent years, it was passed by Styx's Pieces of Eight. But it's still a absolute killer album. The artwork is fantastic. And every time I look at this cover, or if I look at the back cover, or if I look at this part of it, I find little things in there that I never seen before. So anyways, great album and a great band, and I'm going to do a kind of a tribute to them tonight by doing a set list that I would like to see them at their prime perform. So obviously some of these songs on here came out in the later 80s when I was no longer listening, but I would like to see the guys in the prime do it again anyways. So we've got a 25 song set list. I'm going to stick with these 25 song set lists, even though I know that this is probably closer to 2 to 3 hours of music here. But you know what? Since they're doing it for me, I decided they can afford to do it for one show. So anyways, we're going to start out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you why I put that song in that category, or why I decided to set this list. I've set it up exactly the way I'd like to see it if I was going to the concert. So the first song, the first 2 songs, I'm going to call them the opening tracks. These are the 2 opening tracks. They're fairly hard-paced, heavy songs at the beginning, really get your juices flowing. I chose I Live for the Weekend, which comes from Progressions of Power. That's actually an album I don't own, which surprises me. I had it in vinyl. I could have swore I had it in in CDs as well, but apparently I have Allied Forces, which I knew I had, but I thought I didn't. I thought I had this one as well. So I Live for the Weekend off their Progressions of Power album, which would officially be their 4th studio album. The second song is Allied Forces, or Air Raid. Starts out with that Air Raid and then goes into Allied Forces. That would, of course, be off Allied Forces, their 5th studio album, I should say. So now we've done the opening 2 tracks. The next 3 tracks are what I call epics. They're kind of fantasy-oriented, long, epical, kind of melodic, almost proggy. I consider these 4 songs to be in the proggy realm. Not all prog, but some prog, some pop, some heaviness to their music. And so I chose the 4 of them to come next in the set list. The first one is Ordinary Man, killer track off of Progressions of Power. Off of Allied Forces. I was thinking of another song, which I'll get to later. Ordinary Man, really good. I think the vocals here are fantastic. I think it's epic in all categories of music here. Fantastic. The next song out, of course, is going to come off of the album I showed you, which is Just a Game, the title track. At one time, this was my favorite rock song on my favorite rock album, but it's faded somewhat over time just from playing it so much. I love it. I used to sit in the dark and listen to this tune. It's so mesmerizing. It has such a proggy feel to it, and it also tells... it kind of set the stage for the way I was when I was younger. Definitely a song that was almost an anthem to me. The next track out comes from their second album, and it's actually on their first album as well. It's called Blinding Light Show, or Moonchild, from Rock and Roll Machine, or their debut if you prefer. I like the version on the Rock and Roll Machine better, and I think they actually might be the same. But an excellent song, still well within that epic sound that I wanted to capture after the opening act songs. And then the final track for the opening epics, World of Fantasy, which comes off Never Surrender. That album currently... Nope, that's not it. It must be in the front room still. I was listening to it earlier. Anyways, that's the currently on my playlist, doing very well on my playlist, I might add. And I think Mr. King put me back onto that track because I was kind of not getting in there with them, not really wanting to go back. I wasn't really thinking about them really until he started pushing on them. And then I went out and I got this album. And since this album has come back, I've decided I'm going to get them all because this is a band that when I bailed off their Allied Forces, I missed quite a bit. So anyways, I'm back, and A World of Fantasy from Never Surrender. The next 3 tracks are all acoustic bits. This is one of the bands who I absolutely love the classical acoustic bits that Rick Emmett does. They're among my favorites, and he does them very well, so I put 3 of them in here. First one is Fantasy Serenade off of Just a Game. Next one is Petite Etude, which is on Allied Forces. And then the third one comes off the one in my playlist, which is Never Surrender, which is a minor prelude. All 3 of these little classical bits that I enjoy, absolutely killer. And then we're going to go to more of a bluesy sound. I've added a few songs here that have a little bit of that bluesy sound to them. Some of them a little more than others, but definitely have that. So we're going to move into that bluesy sound. You know, you've done your epics, you've done your little classical interludes. Now you're coming into the bluesy sound part. So Young Enough to Cry is going to lead this off because I think it is absolutely a killer song that doesn't get enough attention. A deep cut. At one time, this was my favorite song too. At one point in time, I remember I would listen to this continuously. It's just such a great song. His Rick Emmett's voice is so good here. Is it Rick Emmett? Actually, I think I got that wrong. I think this is Moore. I think this is Gil Moore's voice, which would make sense because he has the range for this song. I don't know why I thought it was Rick Emmett for a second there. But anyways, this is from Just a Game. Absolutely killer track, as most of the songs on that album are. Absolutely love it. Then you go to Hard Road, which is on Progressions of Power. This is maybe not so bluesy, maybe a little bit more epic-y, but still an absolute killer song. Then we go to Bring It On Home, which is on Rock and Roll Machine. This one, really bluesy, really catchy. Vocals are fantastic. Great song. Then the next era that we go into after that is the kind of... these are a little bit on the party rocking side. So if they're heavier, a little bit more of that party rocking atmosphere. I chose a few tracks for this to kind of bring me out of the blues, give me that party feeling. And so the first song I chose is Too Much Thinking, which is on Never Surrender. This is the opening track with the Ronald Reagan part, which is really cool. And then Fool for Your Love. Ooh yeah, I'm a fool for your love, baby. From Allied Forces, another really good, heavy kind of party rockin' song. Then you got Spellbound, which maybe not so much of a party rock song, but definitely a song that I like quite a bit. And this is on Thunder 7, which is the only song from that album that I know that well. I don't own the album, but I do like it, so it's definitely an album that will be coming in the future. The next track, which is number 16, coincidentally, Nature Child. This was the one I was thinking about earlier when I said Ordinary Man. Definitely I don't know if it's a party rockin' song, but it definitely has that kind of triumphy sound that is so synonymous with them. Then we're going to move into some more rockers here. These are a little bit more rockers. Moving On, which has always been one of my favorite tracks from Just a Game. I think Gilmour really is at his best on this track. It's really catchy. I love to sing it. I love to hear it. Fantastic tune. Then we're going to go back to Rock and Roll Machine with Takes Time, baby, it takes time to make time. Such a rockin' song. Then we're going to go to Hold On, which is also on Just a Game. The thing about Hold On is that it's a bit of a commercial sounding song, but it's absolutely epic in its scope of everything. Could have put it in the epics as well, but I decided to put it here towards the end. Great tune. Say Goodbye off of Allied Forces, another epic rocking song. And then you've got Tear the Roof Off Tonight. Yeah, fantastic song off Progressions of Power. One of their best rocking songs. I think this and I Live for the Weekend. Those I was debating between which of the two to put in that opening slot, and I went with I Live for the Weekend just because I like it just a little bit more. And then we're going to close out, the song that's going to close out the concert is A World of Fantasy off of Never Surrender. Really good, typical Triumph song, a little heavy but emotionally draining song. So then, of course, nobody's going to let them leave on that note. They got to come back, and I've chosen 3 encores for them to do because I always like 3 encores. I know most groups do 1 or 2, but they're doing 3, whether they like it or not. So the first one is going to be Fight the Good Fight, which I think is absolutely killer. One of my favorite tracks. Can't listen to this song enough. It's just so good. The guitar is fantastic. The riffing is incredible. It's off of the Allied Forces album, which many people consider to be their best album. I will not argue that point at all. Then the second closer would be Lay It on the Line, of course, one of the most well-known Triumph songs. really good off of Just a Game, which is my particularly favorite album. I think this is one of the, this and Fight the Good Fight to me are the two songs that really bring out the best in Rik Emmett's voice. He is absolutely killer on both tracks, and the guitars are fantastic. The whole song is just lights up the sky, both of them. And then we're going to end off with probably their biggest hit as far as most popular and poppy song of all time, Magic Power. Not a track that I've ever overly loved or anything, but if you're going to end off a concert with your best, this is probably their best, and so that's the way we're going. Magic Power from Allied Forces, which most people consider their best album. So that ends the concert. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of 25 song set list from Triumph. Just absolutely killer. This is a band with no shortage of great songs, no shortage of deep cuts. Just a real heavy metal, well, I don't know if they're heavy metal, but a real hard rock, bluesy, epic type band with everything that you can possibly want. Probably one of Canada's greatest rock bands of all time. If not for Rush, maybe they would be number one. I'm not sure. It's hard to say. But absolutely a killer band. Love them. And I hope that you've enjoyed this episode of Favorites. We'll be back next week with another episode. So please hit the like, subscribe, and any comments. If you want to put your set list in the bottom there, you can do that as well. I like to see what songs people like and why they like them. And the good part about that is often people will pick stuff that I never really listen to much, and it gets me listening to that stuff. So that's what part of this is about as well. And I hope that some of what I said will get you listening to this band. This is a band, if you like hard rock, if you like that kind of proggy elements, if you like some blues and some classical and some great instrumentation and some fantastic vocals, you will love Triumph. I almost guarantee it. So don't forget to hit the notification bell. We will see you next week on Favorites. Have a good night and take care. Goodbye.